Hello, hi, welcome once again to M5's English language learning program, Let's Speak English. I'm Gav Duncan and I'm here on your TV to help you learn English. Now, are you sitting comfortably? Yes? Good! And are you ready for today's lesson? Yes? Good! Okay, well, let's learn English together. And welcome, people. Welcome back once more to the studio. And it's a special day. Yes, not only is this the first day of the week, not only is this the first day of the first week following the latest mini revision session, no, there's more. This, as some of you may be aware, but then again, I suspect that you've got better things to do with your time than count the days of the year. So maybe the vast majority of you aren't aware, and that's cool, Hefe, that's cool. Anyway, the point is that this week we're starting something. Yes, not something new, but it's time for the big roundup. Yes, that time, that wonderful time of revision has wandered back into town, and now, well, there's not a minute to waste, is there? No, it's time to get stuck in to the Mega Revision Part 4. Hold on to your pants, because here we go. Viv, are you there? Press something. Yes, press the button. What does this button do? Well, no, that didn't work, did it? I tell you what, press something else. The right button. Yes, try pressing the correct button. That'll probably work. And hello again, gang. How the decibels are you all? Are you all doing well? Did you all have a great weekend? Did you all enjoy the mega revision that we've been having? Well, I hope so. But enough about what we've been revising. What about what we were looking at before we started the mega revision, eh? What about that then? Now, a number of weeks ago, I mentioned that we were going to look at something new, didn't I? Does that ring any bells? No? Okay, that doesn't matter. What I said was that it was time for us to look at some new grammar. Any faint recollection? Any tingling feeling at the base of your skull? No? No matter, let me continue. I said that we needed to have a roundup of the tenses we'd already seen before we started on this new grammar front. And that's what we were doing. We looked at the different tenses that we know and love. We looked at the present simple, the tense we use when we're talking about things which remain or stay the same. Things that don't often change, like names and gender, places where we live and jobs. Things like that normally use the present simple, don't they? My name is Gav Duncan. I'm a man. I live in Hungary. I'm a teacher. Now, what else do we know about the present simple? Well, where are the danger areas? Where do we have to be careful? When do we have to exercise caution? Well, we have to be a little bit on our guard when we're using the verb to be. That's a little bit, well, different, isn't it? I am, you are, he, she, it is, we are, you are, they are. I mean, it's not really difficult, but we have to remember to conjugate the verb correctly. We have to pay attention to what we're doing when the subject of the sentence is the first person singular or the third person singular. But that's not too hard for us to handle, is it?
Pretty little thing living like you count, cause mama, I'm sure hard to handle now, yes around.
No matter what people say, it's not too hard for us to handle. Okay, so we can handle that. The verb to be in the present simple tense. All right, now, what about the negative? Well, that's pretty simple too. All we have to do is add that word. You all know the one I mean. The word we always see when we're talking about negatives in English. Chimpanzee! No, not chimpanzee. Sorry, that was just my little joke. I couldn't resist. No, As we all know, the word we need when we're making negatives in English is the word not the word chimpanzee. Chimpanzee doesn't feature in English grammar. I'm chimpanzee, a woman. See? It just doesn't get the message across. Not is much more useful. I'm not a woman. There? See? Much better. Okay, all right. So we know that when we want to make a negative sentence using the verb to be in the present simple tense, we have to add the word not to the mixture. All right. Now, who remembers how we do it? Well, as I'm sure you all remember, when we're making a positive sentence using the verb to be in the present simple, we start with the subject or the subject pronoun and then follow with the correctly conjugated form of the verb to be, am, is, or are. So, if the subject of the sentence is, say, Chief Mangasuta Buthelezi, then we either start with his name or with the correct subject pronoun, which in this case is he. After that, we follow with the correctly conjugated form of the verb to be, he is, and then we follow the verb to be, the correctly conjugated form of the verb to be, with the rest of the sentence, whatever that is. Chief Mangasuta Buthelezi, he, is a South African political leader. Okay. Now, we also know that we all love to shorten, to abbreviate in English. So, if we're using the subject pronoun, it's more usual for us to say he's instead of he is. All right, so that's the positive sentence. Now, what about adding not to the mix to make the sentence negative? Where do we have to put not? Yes, that's right. We put not after the correctly conjugated form of the verb to be. So is changes to is not. And again, because we all love to abbreviate, it saves time. It's more useful or more usual for us to say isn't instead of is not. Chief Mangasuta Buthelezi, he is not, isn't a South African political leader. All right, now before we go any further, let's just highlight something. Let's just underline something. Let's just remind ourselves of something connected to abbreviations. Do you all know what I'm talking about? I'm sure you all do, but it won't hurt to have another quick look, will it? No, of course not. Now, what I'm talking about, of course, is the fact that with most subjects, when we're using not with the present simple, we can abbreviate in two directions. We can join the correctly conjugated form of the verb to be to the subject and follow with not on its own, or alternatively, we can leave the subject on its own and join the correctly conjugated form of the verb to be to not. Now, as I'm sure you all remember, and as I'm sure you all know, there is something that we can do with the majority of subjects, with the vast majority of subjects. In fact, if you feel like a statistical analysis of what we're talking about, we can do this with 87.5% of the subjects. Yeah? What about that, huh? Yes. And who remembers the one subject where we can't do this? Yes, that's right. The only subject where we can only abbreviate one way using not is the first person singular. When we're making a negative sentence in the first person singular using not, we can only abbreviate in one direction. We can only join the subject to the correctly conjugated form of the verb to be. We can never join anything to not. Not has to remain on its own. So we can say I am not, and we can say I'm not, but we can never say I amn't. That's all. But with the other subject forms, we can abbreviate to the left or to the right. It makes no difference. So pick the one you like most. All right, so what next? Well, what about the question form? How do we make questions when we're using the present simple form of the verb to be? Well, what do we all remember about how we form a question in English? Yes, that's right. Something changes with the structure of the sentence, doesn't it? Yes, with a positive statement, we follow a certain pattern. Subject or subject pronoun, verb to be, correctly conjugated, and then the rest of the sentence. But when we want to ask a question, we swap the positions of the subject and the verb, don't we? Okay. And that means that in this situation, when we're dealing with the present simple form of the verb to be, that we're going to start our question with one of three words. We either start our question with am, are, or is. If we're asking a question about the first person singular, if we're asking a question about ourselves, if the subject of the question is I, then we're going to start the question with the correctly conjugated form of the verb to be in the present simple, and that form is am. So, just as in a positive statement where the subject is the first person singular, we say I am. When we want to turn that into a question, we have to swap the positions of the subject and the verb. I am becomes am I. Similarly, if the subject of the question is the second person singular or any of the plural subjects, then we're going to use the correct form of the verb to be, in this case, are. You are becomes are you. We are becomes are we. You are, the plural you, becomes are you. And finally, they are becomes are they. So, what else do we have to be careful about? Well, we have to remember that when we're asking questions, we always have to put a question mark at the end of the question, just to make sure that everyone realizes that we're asking a question. But then, we always remember to do that, don't we? Yes, of course we do. The sort of people who forget to do that are the sort of people who can't tell the difference between the letters G and J. The sort of people who confuse the pronunciation of nation, national, and international. So, yes, as we all know, we don't fall into that category, do we? No. Well, I certainly hope that we don't. All right, now where were we? Oh, yes, of course. What about question words? We haven't thought about what happens when we use a question word in our question, have we? Well, this is very simple too. If we're using a question word, a word like what, when, why, how, where, who, one of those, then we remember that the question word goes at the very beginning. If we're using a question word, then we start our question with that word and then follow with the verb and then the subject. So that means that although we can ask the question, is your scooter fast? And we know that we have to start with the correct form of the verb, in this case, the third person singular form. We're asking a question about a scooter, it's the third person singular, which means that we start with is and then follow with the subject, in this case, your scooter. We also know that if we decide to ask a different question, this time using a question word, then we start the sentence with the question word and then follow the question word with the correctly conjugated form of the verb, and then follow that with the subject. What color is your scooter? Question word, verb, then subject. Oh, and don't forget the question mark at the end. And that's it. Yes, we're done for the day. This, the first lesson in our new mega revision, is slowly coming to a close. And that means that it's time for us to part. The time has come for us to go our separate ways. But this is no time for tears. No, wipe those tears from your eyes. Remember what Johnny Halliday's mum told us. Milk is no use when it comes to cleaning up things. Eyebrows are just as bad, especially when it comes to cleaning up spilt milk. I recommend that you use a damp cloth. Exactly. I couldn't have put it better myself. Anyway, the point is, people, that I'll be back on your screens tomorrow. So don't waste that water from your eyeballs. See you tomorrow, people. See you later. And if you do find that this mega revision, this fourth mega revision, isn't enough, you all know where to head to, don't you? Yes, that's right. www.mediaclick.hu, the place where there's more. See you later. Bye.